Hi, today we will explain the storyline of the movie titled American Ultra, which was released in 2015. Okay, let's get right to the story. A young man named Mike is sitting with an investigator in an interrogation room. The investigator shows him photos of evidence from the crime scene and asks him to recount the sequence of events. The young man remains silent because he is confused about where to start. However, after recalling the entire incident, he decides to begin 3 days earlier when he was in Liman, West Virginia, where he lives with his girlfriend, Phoebe. Mike loved Phoebe deeply, even though their relationship wasn't always smooth. He had even secretly planned to propose to Phoebe and take her on a trip to Hawaii by plane. However, Mike messed it up. Just before departure, Mike had a panic attack, causing them to miss the flight. As a result, they couldn't go and had to return home. In the car, Mike apologized to Phoebe for ruining their plans again, thinking he would be able to overcome his nervousness this time. Patiently, Phoebe forgave Mike and asked him not to blame himself. Suddenly, a police car pulled them over. The officer, Sheriff Watts, seemed familiar to them. He knew about Mike and Phoebe's plans to go to Hawaii, but Mike always had panic attacks whenever he was about to leave the city. Additionally, Mike had been reprimanded several times for marijuana use, so Phoebe was worried that was why they were pulled over. Watts said he didn't want to search their car, but he warned Mike not to leave any traces of marijuana at the station. Upon arriving home, Mike cooked dinner for them while Phoebe unpacked their clothes from the suitcase. Mike then put on some music and sat on the sofa, looking at the ring he planned to give Phoebe. He forgot that he was cooking scrambled eggs, and at that moment, Phoebe smelled something burning from the kitchen. Phoebe immediately scrambled to clean up the burnt eggs, and only then did Mike realize what had happened. He could only apologize, but his overly apologetic attitude made Phoebe angry. Then, Mike went to work at a mini-market. He got ready behind the cash register, arranged the items on the shelves, and then returned to his desk. While waiting for customers, he passed the time by drawing characters from his comic series, Apollo 8, which he had been working on lately. That night, he went outside the store to arrange letters on a billboard in the empty parking lot while lighting a cigarette, unaware that he was being targeted by the CIA from a distance. At the CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, Agent Victoria Lasseter received a call informing her that the Ultra Tough Guy program had been activated, and their target was Mike Howell, referred to as Wiseman's asset. This time, Mike was to be eliminated immediately, and the mysterious caller designated Lasseter as the operation leader. She was stunned by the news, especially since they had promised to protect Mike. However, she was not given the chance to refuse the mission. Before the call ended, Lasseter suspected that the caller was her rival, Adrian Yates. The next day, Agent Lasseter interrupts Agent Yates during a meeting. Lasseter asks about the Tough Guy program and why the target is an asset from the Wiseman project she previously worked on. Yates is confused why Lasseter is protesting a program that originated from her idea, but Lasseter says she canceled it because it killed too many people. Yates explains that Mike must be eliminated because he keeps trying to escape the city. Here, he says that Mike is merely a government asset and cannot leave freely as it threatens national security. However, Lasseter disagrees. Mike is a human being and an ordinary citizen of the United States. Yates eventually used his higher position to kick Lasseter out of his office and ordered her to obey all his commands, but despite this, Lasseter promised she wouldn't stay silent. Meanwhile, Mike told Phoebe he was leaving work early, while in reality, he had a secret mission to prepare a surprise proposal for Phoebe. He had already purchased some fireworks from his acquaintance and supplier, Rose, before heading to work. As usual, the mini-market was quiet until Lasseter entered and bought some items. Lasseter then approached Mike and spoke to him in a strange language that was supposed to be understood only by the two of them. However, Mike seemed completely oblivious to Lasseter's intentions. The words echoed in Mike's ears, but he responded as if he didn't understand a thing. Seeing this, Lasseter apologized and left without taking her purchases. As night fell, Mike saw two men tampering with his car in the parking lot. They then approached Mike and attacked him. However, Mike automatically and effortlessly defeated both men, as if an automatic program had activated when he was attacked. After they were both dead, Mike returned to the store and called Phoebe, feeling panicked because he had just killed someone. Phoebe initially didn't believe him, but she eventually came to the store and saw the bodies herself. Shortly after, the police arrived and caught both of them. Without resisting, Mike and Phoebe went along when the police arrested them. In the jail cell, Mike recounted how he had killed the two men, mentioning Lasseter's visit, which he thought was nonsense. However, Mike remembered every word Lasseter had said and everything that had happened to him in the last 94 minutes. So Sheriff Watts took them to the interrogation room. Meanwhile, Yates's men reported that the 2 agents they had sent had been killed by Mike. Yates was shocked to hear that Mike had killed them with just a spoon. Moreover, he was certain that Mike's program had been deactivated, and he quickly realized that Lasseter had beaten him to it. He ordered his men to seal off the city to prevent Lasseter from escaping, then sent 2 more agents named Laffer and Crane. While Mike and Phoebe were in the interrogation room, Watts demanded that Mike confess why he had killed the 2 men. Phoebe helped him by saying that Mike was only defending himself. Suddenly, the electricity in the police station became unstable, and the emergency alarm sounded, causing everyone to panic. Watts's colleague reported that they were in danger, so Mike and Phoebe were moved back into their cells. While the officers were checking the situation, Laffer and Crane broke down the door and started shooting indiscriminately, leaving no one time to take cover or defend themselves. Laffer rushed to Mike's detention cell and tried to kill him, but Laffer's laughter activated Mike's attack mode, causing him to quickly block Laffer's attack. Mike then took Phoebe and ran away from the place, while Crane, who saw Mike's direction from the CCTV camera monitor, tried to stop them. Crane threw an active grenade at Mike, who caught it and threw it back, causing the police station to be instantly destroyed by the grenade. Before leaving, Mike beat Crane until she was helpless. Elsewhere, Lasseter, who was trapped at the city border gate, called Yates, knowing this was Yates' doing for blocking the road. Yates answered the call and stated he knew Lasseter had mentioned Mike's activation code. Lasseter didn't deny the accusation because she wanted to stop Yates. Lasseter ended the call without giving Yates time to respond, then contacted his colleague, Agent P.D. Douglas, to send weapons to the meeting point. She was determined to track down all of Yates's tough guy robots. Meanwhile, Mike and Phoebe, who were confused, thought they should flee the city. Mike suggested they go to Rose's house instead. Phoebe thought Mike was inviting her to smoke weed in the middle of a crisis, but Mike quickly corrected her, explaining that Rose had a collection of firearms and they could take shelter there. Phoebe is still scared and thinks whatever they do is a bad idea. Sure enough, Mike's car suddenly explodes, so they end up using Phoebe's car. As they approach Rose's house, they get out to continue on foot. Mike, now calmer, tries to recall his childhood. However, he couldn't recall any memories of himself, but he could remember many other things. He told Phoebe that he was worried he was a robot, as he didn't even know who his parents were. Phoebe reassured Mike that he was a regular human being, and Mike gave an example that his extensive memory allowed him to write down dozens of types of tanks. In reality, he felt he knew nothing about tanks. Meanwhile, Yates lands at a parking lot where his men have set up tents in the open. He's furious because he ordered the meeting to be held in secret. Otis greets Yates and tries to explain, but Yates doesn't give him a chance. He wants to meet his assets immediately. They were all gathered in a truck that wasn't moving at all. Yates approached Laffer, who immediately reported that he had lost several teeth when he beat up Mike. At Rose's house, Phoebe and Mike couldn't relax because Rose was anxious about the conspiracy news that had just spread that night. He heard that aliens had landed and spread a type of disease-causing bacteria from monkeys, and this news was already on TV. Rose turned on the TV, which was reporting that a quarantine had been imposed outside. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention added that if something was spreading, the disease was called super typhus. The news anchor then explained that the disease originated from 2 people, and they were shocked to see photos of Lasseter and Mike as the first people to spread the disease. Rose immediately kept his distance from Mike and was confused, especially after Mike said that the woman in the photo was the woman who had come to see him last night. Rose, panicking, threatened Mike with a gun, but Mike tried to calm him down and said he might be a robot. Rose was stunned by this, especially since Mike could quickly take the gun from him. After calming down, Rose locked Mike and Phoebe in the basement gym. There, Mike saw himself in the mirror and felt better than before. Meanwhile, Lasseter, who had already asked PD for help, quickly headed to the data and weapon drop-off point. Lasseter read the files on the people who were Tough Guy's assets, one of whom was Laffer, a dangerous psychiatric patient. PD himself didn't escape Yates' surveillance. Shortly after sending Lasseter's request, Yates called him and demanded an explanation for the sudden supply drop. Yates immediately realized that PD had secretly helped Lasseter and accused him of aiding a CIA defection operation. He threatened to kill PD if he helped Lasseter again. Hearing the threat, PD naturally became afraid. Shortly after their conversation ended, Lasseter contacted him again and asked him to contact their superior, Kruger, for permission to confirm his findings to the public. However, PD this time said he couldn't help Lasseter anymore. Meanwhile, Phoebe was looking for a way to escape from Rose's house. She didn't want to just sit there and wait for Rose to judge them further. Unbeknownst to them, Mike's hiding place had been discovered. Yates coordinated his team to send 3 tough guy agents, Newton, Laffer, and Bourbon. He also used deadly gas to eliminate the occupants of Rose's house from outside through the ventilation system. Additionally, one of them infiltrated the house and shot Rose and his friends. Mike and Phoebe managed to escape from the basement, but Mike inhaled some of the rhofloxacin gas sent by Yates, which made the victims weak and drowsy. However, if they fell asleep, they would die immediately. To counter this, Phoebe injected Mike with medication to keep him awake and whispered words to boost his spirits. This method worked because Mike vomited the remaining gas he had inhaled. However, as Phoebe uttered those words of hope, Mike recalled some early memories with Phoebe, one of which was a moment when Phoebe was dressed like an agent and asked Mike to sign a document. Remembering this memory suddenly, Mike immediately pressed Phoebe to admit how she knew the name of the poisonous gas he had inhaled. Stammering, Phoebe tried to explain that she didn't know what was happening, but what she admitted next would not make sense. Phoebe confessed that she had been Mike's spy for the past 5 years, working for the CIA and trying to tell him the truth. This confession left Mike in shock, and he ran toward his car to escape, but Phoebe managed to catch up and get into the car to explain everything. Mike then asks to confirm how many lies Phoebe has told him, but after learning Phoebe's identity, Mike no longer trusts anything she says or feels. He tells Phoebe to get out of the car, but Phoebe insists on talking to Mike. As they were arguing, Lasseter suddenly appeared and crashed into their car from behind, causing Phoebe and Mike's car to roll over. Fortunately, they were both still alive. But Lasseter immediately dragged Phoebe out of the car and pointed a gun at her. Lasseter fired several shots into the air, then told Phoebe that he had to take her alive, so he only beat her until she lost consciousness. Meanwhile, he bent down to check on Mike, who was trapped, and said he was going to do something very bad to Mike. Sure enough, after saying that, he poured gasoline on Mike's car and set it on fire. Not far from there, Lasseter crouched down and helped Mike out of the car, but neither Lasseter nor Phoebe saw Lasseter coming. Lasseter woke Phoebe up to watch her car being burned, and she immediately thought Mike was still inside and screamed hysterically when the car exploded. Lasseter brought Phoebe to face Yates at the airbase. Phoebe wasn't intimidated by Yates at all. Instead, she criticized him for being incompetent and unauthorized to lead an operation. Yates said he had read Phoebe's files and knew all her secrets. Meanwhile, when Yates was certain Mike was dead, Lasseter revived Mike, who was running out of air. Lasseter asked if Mike remembered her, but since Mike didn't recognize Lasseter, Lasseter tried to remind him slowly. Starting from when Mike was 18 years old and arrested for marijuana possession, Lasseter recruited people for a program called Wiseman, designed to anticipate strikes by offenders and offer them voluntary work as test subjects. Mike commented that the experiment had failed, but Lasseter said the opposite, that Mike was the only successful result of the experiment. However, the risks were too high and the subjects lost control. So Lasseter ended the Wiseman program and gave the subjects new lives and identities. Despite this, Mike was disappointed that his memories had been erased and that he had a fake girlfriend. Lasseter tried to cheer Mike up by saying that it wasn't Mike's true self. For example, Mike's fear of leaving the city was one of the things Lasseter had implanted to protect him. Suddenly, an old man who owned a gas station appeared and saw the two of them talking beside his shop. The old man immediately scolded Lasseter and recognized him from TV as the person who first spread the super typhoid disease. The man called the number on the TV, which was connected to Yates's airbase. Yates' men immediately relayed the news to him. Yates became furious and called Petey, ordering him to send a drone within an hour. Phoebe immediately realized that Yates intended to blow up an entire city with the drone. She refused to accept such a method to capture one person. She tried to escape and attacked Yates's men, but this was a hasty and wrong move as she was outnumbered. Lasseter, who was nearby, quickly subdued her and tied Phoebe to a chair. Meanwhile, Petey had already programmed the drone's flight path through his computer. Yates's men reported that 2 drones were heading toward Perryman Way. Yates guessed that Mike was returning home, but Phoebe immediately denied Yates's assumption, insisting that Mike wasn't stupid, just a bit slow to think. However, Yates's prediction was correct. Mike was indeed walking home. He told Lasseter that he was tired and wanted to sleep. Mike wasn't afraid of any missiles targeting him while he slept, so Lasseter had no choice but to follow Mike and stay at his house. Yates then sent Otis and his colleague, Beetle, to visit Mike's house and confirm Mike's location along with Lasseter. While at Mike's house, Lasseter held a gun and patrolled the house. She saw Mike's Apollo Ape comic and started a conversation. After briefly explaining what Apollo Ape was, Lasseter said that Phoebe would return to protect Mike. From the beginning, Phoebe had always believed in Mike and remained loyal to him, especially since Mike was the only successful subject. However, for Phoebe, Mike is not just an experimental subject, but a real individual. Phoebe's mission is to ensure Mike stays in the city, after which she will be reassigned. However, Phoebe chooses to stay with Mike and is willing to sacrifice her life. Suddenly, after admitting all that, Lasseter hears someone entering the house and goes to check. Sure enough, Beetle had already snuck in, while Otis waited outside. Beetle immediately incapacitated Lasseter. Hearing Lasseter's voice, Mike immediately moved to protect him. Beetle was thrown outside, which immediately put Otis on alert, and he fired at Mike while calling for backup at the base. But instead of sending reinforcements, Yates ordered Petey to direct the drone toward Mike's house. Next, Otis and Beetle managed to enter Mike's house, leading to an inevitable shootout. In the distance, Petey struggled with himself not to press the trigger to shoot at Mike's house. In the end, he decided to cut the connection and let the drone fly back. At the same time, Mike managed to disable Otis with a classic shooting trick. After the failed attack, Yates called Mike, even though Lasseter had forbidden him to answer the phone. But Mike was worried it was from the people holding Phoebe. Mike spoke with Yates, who admitted that he had surrendered and didn't want to attack Mike anymore. He then asked Mike to come to a certain place as a peace agreement. Yates added that Phoebe was with him, then handed the phone to Phoebe and let her speak to Mike. Phoebe apologized to Mike and told him to go wherever he wanted without her. After the call ended, Mike quickly changed his clothes and rushed to save Phoebe. He also brought a box of fireworks that he had previously planned to use to propose to Phoebe. A few minutes later, Mike arrived at the parking lot that served as Yates' airbase. He lit the fireworks, distracting Yates. As a result, Yates and his men scrambled to escape and reorganize their attack, while Mike, Yates, and the tough guy troops entered the nearest convenience store before splitting up. Before launching his attack, Mike took the time to express his feelings through the intercom speaker to Phoebe, which enraged Yates and prompted him to order the tough guy agents to attack Mike. Undeterred, Mike fought them one by one using whatever tools were available around him. Though he was hit several times, none of the bullets managed to shake him or stop him. As the final showdown approached, he lit fireworks to block the remaining tough guy crew's vision. The smoke from the fireworks successfully hindered their ability to anticipate Mike's attacks, resulting in their deaths. Meanwhile, Yates took Phoebe to another location and tortured her, but Phoebe had already devised a plan to unlock the handcuffs on her wrists. She hid a paperclip and shaped it into a key, then used it to stab Yates, injuring him but not fatally. He was still able to get up and try to escape, but just then, Lasseter appeared with a rope and tried to finish off Yates. In the shopping corridor, Mike was still dueling with the last remaining tough guy, Laffer. Laffer tried to stall Mike by talking to him and convincing him to show himself. Without warning, Mike suddenly attacks him from the side, but Laffer continues to stall, saying he's sorry for what he did and claiming they were controlled by the same person. Laffer admits that Mike is better than him, especially since he's no longer under anyone's control, which causes Mike to lower his guard and drop his weapon, and at that moment, Laffer disappears into the darkness. Meanwhile, CIA high-ranking official Kruger received a call from someone and boarded a private plane heading to the location where Mike and Yates were meeting. Outside, he witnessed Lasseter choking Yates nearly to death, but he ordered Lasseter to stop. Lasseter, who didn't expect her boss to arrive, lowered her weapon. Phoebe and Mike then helped each other out of the grocery store, which was surrounded by police cars. Before surrendering, he knelt down to propose to Phoebe, and of course, Phoebe immediately accepted Mike's proposal, making both of them happy. However, their happiness didn't last long, as the police immediately fired a stun gun at them from a distance. Meanwhile, the police raided the CIA office and arrested Petey, while Kruger interrogated Yates and Lasseter in an unusual manner. The three of them went into the forest in the rain. Kruger left Yates and Lasseter out in the rain with their hands tied, while Kruger himself used an umbrella. Lasseter tells Kruger that Petey is not guilty of any of his actions in the past 24 hours, but Kruger says Petey will be dealt with after they are both finished. Kruger emphasizes that Yates and Lasseter have directly interfered with government operations, resulting in the deaths of innocent civilians. Lasseter admitted her mistake without defending herself, while Yates still tried to save his job by blaming Lasseter. Yates also did not immediately accept that he was wrong for conducting the operation without orders. He even said that Kruger should be grateful for his actions. This made Kruger unable to tolerate Yates anymore, and he shot him on the spot. Lasseter was initially afraid that Kruger would shoot her as well, but Kruger assured her that he wouldn't. Kruger had called Lasseter to inform her that the tough guy operation had been successful, but now he regretted it. He couldn't understand why Lasseter was so determined to protect one result of the Wiseman project, which had already been deactivated. For that reason, Mike had to be eliminated to prevent him from causing trouble. But Lasseter tried to persuade Kruger not to do it because their experiment had succeeded and Mike was the real result of the project. That's why Mike was eventually detained at the police station and interrogated. 6 months later, Mike and Phoebe were on vacation in Manila, the Philippines, still under Lasseter's surveillance, who sent people to test Mike. Suddenly, 2 men ambushed Mike in the elevator and took him to the hotel kitchen. Another man removed the hood covering Mike's head, mocking his harmless appearance and the fact that he wasn't carrying any weapons. Hearing this, Mike could only laugh. He then proved the man wrong and began attacking them with kitchen utensils.